Hi there, boys and girls. Um, Today we are on lesson 14 for our CKLA. And today's lesson is called What's It Like in Space? Just like we always do before we begin, I do want you to remember that today we are talking about comparing and contrasting two different texts about the moon's landing and what it's like in space. And I want you to just take a peek here. If we remind ourselves what we use when we typically compare and contrast, remember our Venn diagram here. We always remember that we put one topic on one bubble, where you put on this line, one topic on another bubble up here, and then whatever is only true for this topic will go on this side. What is only true of this topic will go on this side. And what is the same or what is similar about both will go in the middle where the both of these circles combine. Okay? Alrighty. You're going to hear me read the first chapter from our reader, chapter 9, A Walk on the Moon. And then you're going to hear me read a second chapter, chapter 10, in a separate video that I'll put up. So I'm going to put two different videos today. One of me reading chapter 9 and one of me reading chapter 10. Okay, so you can look at separate videos when you're going to sit there and compare and contrast them in your Google Doc on your Google Classroom assignment. Okay, chapter 9, A Walk on the Moon. Once Apollo 11 was up in space, the astronauts had to steer it to the moon. There were 3 astronauts on Apollo 11. You can see them in the image on the next page. Each had a job to do. One of them was in charge of flying the spaceship called Columbia. The other 2 had to get into a landing craft called the Eagle. Then they had to steer it down and land it on the moon. You can see a picture. These are the Apollo 11 astronauts, as we can see in the caption right down here. The astronaut who had to steer the Eagle was named Neil Armstrong. He had to find a good flat spot to land. He also had to set the Eagle down gently. Lots of people tuned in to watch Armstrong and the Eagle on live TV. At first, Armstrong had a hard time getting the Eagle to go where he wanted it to go. But in the end, he landed it just fine. Armstrong sent a message back by radio. The Eagle has landed. The crowds watching it on TV went wild. They danced and sang. They shouted and waved the United States flag. For the first time ever, humans had landed on the moon. What happened next was even more amazing. The astronauts went for a walk on the moon. So here's a picture of one of the astronauts actually walking on the moon. And you can see our caption here tells us, here is one of the Apollo 11 astronauts walking on the moon. Can you see his footprints? So if you look closely, I know you see his shadow here, but if you look even closely, you can actually see the footprints of him walking. Pretty cool, right on the moon. There is no air for breathing on the moon. It is also very cold. So the astronauts could not just walk out in shorts and a t-shirt. They had to put on spacesuits, like the one in the image on the next page. They had to wear masks. They had to carry tanks full of air for breathing. Armstrong went out first. He went down the steps of the Eagle until he was on the last one. Then he made a little hop. He landed on the moon and kicked up a little moon dust. Then he said, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Another astronaut joined Armstrong on the moon. His name was Buzz Aldrin. Once again, people watching it on TV cheered. They were proud that the United States had put a man on the moon. You can see this picture here. You can see that the United States, our flag up here. You can see our caption. Buzz Aldrin plants the U.S. flag on the moon. Pretty cool. Oops. While Armstrong and Aldrin were on the moon, pilot Michael Collins stayed on a part of the spaceship that was still orbiting the moon. Armstrong and Aldrin spent more than 21 hours on the moon. They found that it was easy to move about on the moon, which has less gravity than Earth. They could jump up high and seem to float down slowly. They used different tools to explore the moon. They knew the scientists back on Earth were hoping to learn new information about the moon. They dug up samples of moon rocks to take back to Earth. After exploring the moon, Aldrin and Armstrong got back in the Eagle. They lifted off. They met up with Michael Collins on board the other part of the spaceship. Then all three of them flew back to Earth. The spaceship came speeding back from space and splashed down into the sea. A Navy ship came to pick up the astronauts and take them back to NASA. So here they are. Splashdown of Apollo 11. So you can see here, it's where it's landed. You can see here's where they're helping them come out. Okay, boys and girls, stay tuned for the next video of Chapter 10.